Xandon's going to talk about the connector of the month, which is Docusign. So Xandon, you're up.
Hey everybody. So yeah, Docusign. I got to try, let me share my screen real quick. I'm just going to do a high level sort of what you can do with Docusign, some of the things I found, and then a couple of spots where it needs a whole lot more. But this is sort of just a high level since we've got just a few minutes. I'm going to run through it fairly quickly. So this was my first time using Claris Connect. Was actually working with the Docusign, and I found some things very fascinating, some things a little quirky, and some of the UI a little hard to hit. But once I found them, it did end up working, and John helped me find a couple of items, like a couple of things that were hard to find and I couldn't figure out how to control. So for this particular one with DocuShare, I had to do a couple of things before, right, I could set this up. I had to set up a test solution in FileMaker. So I just pulled down, created a new tasks file from their starter collection, and went ahead and put that on one of our servers and password protected it, and got it prepared so that then I could put data into it. The other part was setting up a Docusign account. And I thought I needed a developer account, but apparently I didn't. I just needed a Docusign account. So any Docusign account works in order to set it up. So with those two items in hand, I was ready to proceed to build a flow that would allow me to see what I can get from DocuShare, right? So, so I'm going to do a new flow now and just sort of walk you through it really quick about the different things that you can pull down. So this would be where I'm calling from FileMaker, and I'm going to pass a trigger to DocuFlow to get information, or Docusign. I'm sorry, I'm calling it DocuFlow. Docusign. So to start with, we need to listen. Docusign basically, I'm sorry, we need to listen for a Claris Connect script trigger that's going to be called. And so we connect to, I don't know if you saw it there in my previous piece, we're going to go ahead and connect to the FileMaker server. So we select Claris Connect, select script trigger, and then we select the server that we want. And adding in a new server is really straightforward. Your domain, username, and the database that you're connecting to. I've already done that once, and so I'm just going to use that connection rather than bore you with setting that up. So it's connecting to that solution. And then it's giving me that string, that webhook that I'm going to put into my FileMaker solution. And this is going to allow me to call it from a script. And this trigger is going to trigger Claris Connect to fire off and do a whole bunch of different things. So, so I went ahead and put that in my tasks solution, followed the instructions carefully to create a Claris Connect webhook where basically you have to create a JSON. Well, you create a JSON object that then you're going to pass into the curl options of the URL as data, and then fire that off. And all of that's explained really carefully in this little block of text here, where it basically walks you through it. The one caveat is this little section here. I was like, hey, that's JSON. I don't need to have all this uncomment. You know, I don't need to match it. I can actually do just JSON set object and put action script as the key value pair, but it didn't like that. It does have to be commented out just like this one, and so copying that into script was sort of one of the is the way to go. If you're going through it, you want to make sure that you're commenting it out, so it's not just building a JSON object and passing that in directly. I'm not quite sure. I didn't debug that one further, but that was what I found. So once you have that, then you can copy this URL out, and this is the URL that it's going to use for its webhook, and then it's going to pass that parameter to it. I'd already authenticated this one, so I'm just going to save that trigger. Otherwise, it would ask you to create the script, fire it off, and make sure that that connection is working before it'll let you connect and use that database as one of its connectors. Once it's able to do that, then you can add other items to it. So I've got my script trigger set, and my script is in FileMaker ready to go. Now, when that script trigger fires off, I want to ask Docusign what information can I get from Docusign. So I'll select Docusign as one of the items. And the only thing you can do from a trigger outside of Docusign is get a list of users, which I'm not really positive how helpful that is, but it's a start. So for this particular one, that's what we're going to do. We're going to get a list of users from my account as to users on that account. And so I do that, and then we need to select the Docusign account. And again, this is going to be a process where it would ask you to log in to Docusign. Once you authenticate to Docusign, it adds it to its account set, and then you can, and then it'll automatically send its request to Docusign. So that allows it to connect to Docusign. So for this particular one, I'd already set it up. You do have to use a different one from what I found for each of your flows. So for this one, I had to create a I called it Docusign account list so that it didn't get confused with the other two versions. But I'm just going to select that now and then select continue. Now it's asking for the account number, and this kind of threw me for a curve. I'm like, what am I, trying to figure out, what do I need to type in here to make it work? And then I realized that there's this little caret over here, and you can select an item from the pull down. And once I realized that, I got past that step. So that's another little thing. It's not really obvious, that little caret popping up in there, but then you can save it. So that's pretty much it. It's connected. The script trigger is going to make that call to Docusign and get back the list. So now if I'm in my solution and I go ahead and call that script, so I'm just going to call the Claris Connect webhook, it's going to give me an OK. And it goes ahead and makes that call to Claris Connect. I can see it in the history. It should show up in the history eventually. Oh, forgive me. I need to enable it. Enable it. And I'm going to go back and do one more so we can see visual. I'm getting ahead of myself. What we got, like 2 minutes? Okay, I can hurry. So we're going to go back.
A minute or two over.
Okay. All right. So so I'm going to do another step, and that is from the return value that I get from Docusign, I'm going to go ahead and create a record in FileMaker with that information. So I'm going to select the same server, create record, select that same database, click continue. It connects to it and then asks me what layout that I'm going to go to. If you're familiar with using the data API, this is kind of what it would do. Would ask you for the layout. So I'm going to select task details as the layout. It's giving me all the fields on that layout from that layout in my tasks detail page. So all of these fields are available. From there, I'm going to go ahead and put my response, and you can see the response that it had tested, my response back from Docusign. I'm just going to load it into that field. I'm not going to do anything with it. Maybe set the status to list or user list. And save that. All right. So now that's saved. So I'm going to call the trigger. The trigger is going to reach out to Docusign, and it's going to take that response and create a record in FileMaker. Pretty straightforward. Like I said, I did run it through a couple of different hurdles. So here, if we run it now, it is enabled. And so if I select script and fire that script off, we should get, the script should run. We now have a history that shows that it ran, and we have an 8th record now here at the end of the file. And the 8th record, I put the description. The description is that JSON object. And if we look at that JSON object, we can see the information that I could, parse out at that point and do something with in FileMaker through a script. So that's what we can get from Docusign. The next part, really quick, and I'm gonna blow through this faster. I apologize. Was to see about what I can actually do with Docusign. So the next one was I want to send a document in Docusign, and I want to sign a document in Docusign. So I'll just run through that workflow really quick. So we'll say this is going to be Docusign to FileMaker, and it's going to be sent, where we're sending a document to somebody so that we know that it's going to be awaiting its signature. And So with this particular one, I'm going to start out with the initial trigger as Docusign. And from here, I have, you can either do a document signed completed or a document sent. I'm going to do the document sent one. There's only those two. I was rather surprised. I was hoping there was like a whole bunch more. I think if you needed to elaborate on it, you'd have to do your own. Requests using the Docusign API. But anyway, so I'm going to use that document sent, and then again for connecting to Docusign, you need to, if I created one, I would log into it. And then it would ask me what I want to do. And since I'm going to do a sent, it wants me to check to make sure that that webhook is being fired correctly. And so I have to test a sent document from Docusign. That takes a little bit of time, so I won't blow through that right now.
Hey, Xandon,
Yeah.
it's okay to go longer if you need to. The meeting can go till about 1:30. And I guess if anyone needs to drop off early, they can, but you're welcome to keep going.
Okay, thanks.
However you need to.
No problem. All right, I'll slow down a little.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay, so so we'll go ahead and do Docusign sent, and normally it would ask you to test, and it's not too hard. You have to, of course, log into your Docusign account. So you'd have your Docusign account. You'll need to grab a document and drop it into Docusign to start the document sending process. Set it up as to who you're going to send it to, and so on and so forth, and then you can test it. I'm going to hold right there with that though, since I've already tested it, and just continue on with the process, and then we can see it when it goes through once. So I'll select the sent process. It asks me for the account number for Docusign. This again, use that caret, select Portage Bay. And because I'd already authenticated the trigger previously, I can use it again without having to do that test, which is kind of nice. So it's been able to do that. And now the action that I want when that fires off is I want it to send that information and create a new record in my FileMaker solution. So I'm selecting my file database on that server, and the layout name is going to be the same layout name that I used for the other one, task details. The description is going to be for my Docusign sent. I'm just going to take the entire response. Of course, you could break it out into whatever you need. And for this, I'm just going to say sent, and the task is document sent. Save. And so now if a document is sent in Docusign, it's going to create a new record in my FileMaker solution. So I've got 8 records there. Need to make sure and enable the solution. Come into Docusign. I've got my document. I'm going to say next. I'm going to say who it's going to. It's going to go to me. And my email address. I don't know if everybody uses this, but if you have a Gmail account, using a plus whatever makes life so easy for testing.
That's a cool feature.
Yeah. So PB021, and we'll say DocuShare. So I know what this test is in regards to, and then it's just my gmail.com. What did I do? Plus PB.021. There was an error, saving page.
Oh, DocuShare. It's DocuSign.
DocuSign. Well, that shouldn't matter. But okay. So yeah, this user is going to need to sign it when they get it. And here's my document. I'm going to pull. So this is one of the fun things about DocuSign is you can easily take your PDF. This is one that I'd created before, setting these places where the user needs to initial all of these different things to make sure that they've read whatever it said. And then they need to put their signature here at the bottom saying that they signed it, and everything looks good. I do have a blank second page. Don't delete that out. We'll select next, and I'll say sign this document. So now I should get the email for this document, and when it sends, and my FileMaker solution should get a a 9th record, and it can take a moment or so for that to fire off and trigger all the way through. So let me come back into our history, and nothing yet. Let's see. And when I was playing with this earlier, it can take a few seconds. It can sometimes, I haven't had it drag on real long, but oh, there we go. So it created the records now. And I actually have 2 solutions in there that are doing it. So it created 2 records. So to the same thing that that Olin had said, you can use the same trigger for multiple flows. Since I have multiple flows that are enabled under that same trigger, it created a record under one of the other ones as well as the one that I just created. And so here we've got that. It's marked as sent, and we can see the JSON object that it got from Docusign. And then you of course can parse through that. One thing I was going to say about Olin's piece, where you're trying to go through the array of child objects, it did look like there was like a repeat function in there that took a list. I don't know if you played with that. I haven't, definitely, so I have no idea if that's a solution, but I was wondering if you could maybe just pass it the child object, or the object that has the child array in it, and it would automatically handle that as a list. It was sort of a thought I was thinking of, but not sure. And so that there is the response that the document was sent. And now I'm going to just take and do one last one. So I'm going to review my document and sign it. I'll pull that bad boy down here. Allow access, I agree. I'm going to sign my life away, just like when I was buying a house. I just sign, sign, sign. Yes, I'm going to do all that stuff, and then say finish. And so
you probably use the email address to tie the FileMaker data to the Docusign data.
Oh, yes. I got ahead of myself. Let's see.
I mean,
So in my last, so that flow was the signed version, which I don't think I did review that one, but let's just take a look. It's basically the exact same. I would have selected sign under the action instead of sent. The account is going to be, I'm going to use a different login because again, it has to test that. It has to test that to make sure the callback is happening correctly. Once it's able to successfully test that, then you can use it in any of the different solutions. You can use it in multiple flows. And so that was the one that I used for that. It's going to verify the account, which I had already set to Portage Bay. And then we're going to go ahead and create a record for that particular one. And then because it's enabled, I'm sort of, smoke and mirrors what happened. We got our 11th record here saying that it's been signed, and we can see our data coming out there as well. So I apologize. I'm really going through this really fast. I was thinking I was going to take a lot more time and really explain it out and some of the caveats that I had. But I think this gives a pretty good overview of what you can do with it. Some of the issues that I ran into had to do with once it was set. So if I have my flow, how do I control what I've given it access to? And that one, when you're in the flow, isn't particularly obvious, right? Because you can see settings and you can see the history, but you can't see the connections for it. So you have to go back out to flows and to connected apps. And that's where all those different connections are being made. And you do have to do a separate connection for the sent, for the signed, and for the list view, which was also interesting. I couldn't use the same one. I thought I could. I kept trying it, but it wasn't working. And so creating a separate connection for each of the different calls that you're actually going to be, callbacks you're going to be getting from Docusign. And then as well, one for my FileMaker solution. And from here, you can delete them or update them, and it'll let you know, of course, if they're in an active one, so you don't accidentally delete one that you don't want to delete because it's being used for something. And from what I can tell, these connected apps are specific to this project. So if I created a different project and connected them, they won't conflict, which I think makes really good sense. But like I said, it wasn't really intuitive initially about how it was being connected to the different solutions. So once I found that, I was really excited. I felt a lot better about this.
Hey, does that Docusign response, does it include the either the image of the signature or access to it? How does that work?
So rather than parse it out and play with it, this is everything that comes in that response for that signed one. If there's custom fields that needed to be filled in, they would show up in there, right? Because you can from within. Pop back out to DocuSign. From within DocuSign, when you drag a document in, you can do all sorts of other setup stuff, which is, and pass that information down in. So if I did another document here, click next, set to who it was going to go. And click next. You can put in names, you can put in emails, you can put in text that they have to fill in. So there's a lot of different stuff you can do from DocuSign to really gather information, and then that would be passed in that object from DocuSign. And so
if you want to put this signature in a container, how do you access it through the response? Have you worked that far ahead yet?
No, I haven't. I don't think it gives you access to that, honestly.
Okay. I was wondering about that as security wise.
I can't see why it would. That you would, I mean, I don't even, you can't even get the document. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how best to handle that. You do get an email from DocuSign saying it's completed and so on and so forth, and you have access to it, but there's no reference other than, what it is.
I would think that'd be a security feature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this could start off another workflow in FileMaker where, you had a contract that needed to be signed before you could start a project, and this could determine that needed to happen. Yeah, the information is somewhat limited. So that was sort of one of the things that I was a little concerned about, because I was looking at the developer API for Docusign, and it was pretty, there were a lot of different things you could do with their API. So I was surprised that there's only the two calls that you can make for hooks from Docusign, and then there's only one call request that you can make from FileMaker, and that's the lists. So I was expecting that there would be a lot more, but I mean, those work for giving you the documents, but that's pretty much it. So with the flows, that's kind of all you get there is the, if we're in action, you only have those two, signed and completed or document sent.
So in your explorations, was there any way, to me, the dream scenario is to be able to generate a contract in FileMaker on the fly and then push it to DocuSign and then have it get signed by DocuSign. But since you have to, manually place your tags of where you want things signed, it seems like that's impossible unless you sort of merge it with some sort of pre-placed template or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And that immediately came up as the hang up, that you have to put those tags in there. So I think what you could do from FileMaker is open maybe a web viewer that went to DocuSign and allowed you to set those tags and fire it off, and then have it attach that to the solution somehow based on the sent parameter. So that way you could keep them within FileMaker and not having to be in a separate browser session. But yeah, other than that, I think with the API, you can probably do all of that and even probably construct how to interact with those droppable objects, but I'm not I'm not positive about that either. Yeah, because I was excited. I was expecting the same thing. Oh, I'd be able to pass it a PDF, and then yeah. So yeah.
All right. Well, great info though.
Yeah.
So I think one other avenue you could take if you wanted to is, I mean, you can use, so you set up whatever trigger, you know, a FileMaker script trigger or whatever your trigger you want to trigger the flow, but then the action you could use, instead of the Docusign action, there's an action under webhooks called HTTP put request. So there you could use the Docusign API, I'm assuming it's a put request or whatever you need to do to push that data there. So there's a way to work with APIs from within Claris Connect as well.
Oh, interesting. Does it?
Yeah.
I guess the next question on that would be, does it handle connecting to that? So
Yeah, so if you click webhook up above a little bit.
Upper left-hand corner.
Upper left-hand corner.
Off the screen right now.
Oh, webhooks here.
Yellow, yeah, and then just choose any one of those requests. And then it's going to ask you for these parameters.
First string header authentication.
And I think
Username and password, pop separated for standard 18. Oh, okay. Yeah.
so. I don't know what the object, you know, what exactly you need to pass, but if you said the API is pretty thorough for Docusign, I don't see. I mean, if the API includes that,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be another option.
Yeah. Depending on the authentication mechanism Docusign requires, if it'll allow for straight
Right.
REST commands without requiring an OAuth session. I think everybody's moving to OAuth though, so that's the hard part. But yeah, I'm not sure about Docusign. A lot of APIs handle that though, so that would be really helpful for connecting with different things if it didn't have the pieces available for you. That's what Olin had used too, right? Did you use HTTP GET response and request?
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
I must admit, I like the field mapping that I saw there for Docusign when you were mapping out where should the results go. That's a nice UI. It's very simple that you can click on just in the description there that any part of the body is clickable.
Yeah, that's what I like to. So, and that's where I was thinking, like if you selected, so in this particular one, not document sent. Let me go into the other one real quick. And
I was going to ask, is that up to the, that's just standard for Claris Connect, right? That UI, if there's something returned, it lets you parse it out.
yeah, yep. And so it's taking that. So if I did that there for my response, does it have the,
It's got a lot.
it does have the array, right? So it doesn't look like it. So tab status, there's my 0 index signed here, 0 index initial here. Yeah, so tab status, if I pulled the tab status out, although it doesn't seem to allow me to do anything other than pass it in,
Right.
but maybe we could do a repeat and take the Docusign tab status, or actually here it is, tab status list. Yeah, so save that as the list, and then for each item in the list, yeah, here you go. This would
Yeah.
probably solve your problem, Olin.
Yeah.
You could then, create a separate record in FileMaker in that same solution, 18. And because these would be related records, I would go to, I might pass them into a script to let it create the child records.
Yeah.
But yeah, these could be assignments maybe. And
That's interesting.
yeah, so that makes really good sense if you have an array that it can iterate through them. That's very helpful for a child array.
Thank you so much, Xandon. That was really great. And I
Thanks.
learned a lot about Docusign, and it's good to know where the limitations are too when you only have it's like this is the only action right now. Of course, this is probably going to evolve. I imagine, you know, we may have more actions show up as well as new connectors as well, but we'll just have to see with later versions of Connect. So
yeah, it was really exciting how quickly, after I'm familiar with it, I could connect it. It took me a little bit of, you know, stumbling to get there without any real documentation or watching any videos. So from a completely, you know, novice standpoint of using Claris Connect, I fumbled through it pretty good. Only banged my head against the wall for a little while. So yeah, it wasn't too difficult. It wasn't too difficult. And in repeating it, you can see how fast it would be to add it once you've already got everything sort of set, to be able to add in additional workflows.